Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, the Director of BIM Development and Technical Evangelist here at CTC, and today we're going to be continuing the HIVE CMS Admin Learning Series talking about how to do request administration. As always, we keep an eye on the questions window live while we're talking, so feel free to throw questions in there as we go, and I'll try to answer them as we go. And also, we keep a huge Q&A session at the end in case you have questions you want answered about the HIVE CMS and today's topic. That's one of the big benefits of participating live in our webinars. And also, of course, these are recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel the next day. So that way you can review this and share this and use it as a resource ongoing. So with that, let's jump into and talk about today's main topic here. So, some of us may have the request system enabled. Probably by default, we all do have it enabled, and we have to know how to deal with that. So like, we're going to accept it, decline it, move forward. Like, how are we going to work with these requests? And since user can place these requests, assuming you've got it allowed in settings, the goal of today is to teach you or show you how you can easily work with and manage those incoming content requests, how you can track it, work with it, whatever. So as they come in, you'll have some actions, you'll have some notifications, and we're going to cover today how you can be the admin of those. So we're going to talk about four major things. What is a HIVE request? We're going to actually kind of build a request from an end user and then see how that affects us within the HIVE portal. How can we access the actual request management? How do we admin it? What are those controls? And then, reviewing requests and commenting and potentially closing out requests as they come in. So since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, we're going to jump in live, starting with what is a HIVE request. So with HIVE open here, I'm currently signed in as an end user. I'm signed in as Joe, my basic end user here, user of HIVE. And Joe has the ability over here to add requests. So if they search for a piece of content, say they've looked for something, I'm going to look in a specific library here and tell this that I'm looking for maybe Titus and see what shows up. And in this case, there's a bunch of things that showed up, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. And since it doesn't have what I want, what I'm going to do is request some additional content. So I'm going to add a request here. As I click Add Request, it's going to bring me directly to the request portion on the site and let me see my current request as an end user. Here I can create a brand new request. I can say Titus VAV box is needed. And I can give you some kind of a priority for that, potentially. I can tell you what library perhaps I think it belongs in, if I want to suggest that. Nice thing about this, if users do suggest a library for it, the managers or admins of this library actually get notified directly. If they don't suggest a library, then everybody who's a library admin in the system gets notified. I can provide for you a file if I want to. I can give you a bit more of a description about this. Maybe I'm looking for TMS-1234 box or something, and maybe I have additional attachments to include here for you, like cut sheets, maybe a Revit family, maybe whatever I want. Ultimately, I can save this as an end user, and this request now is going to make its way into the system. As Joe, I now have 3 requests at play. Notice I have Titus VAV box needed. Apparently earlier I wanted a price VAV box because that didn't happen to exist, but these types of requests can be placed. Now Joe can interact with these requests, but us as admins, we also can interact with this. So let's talk about how you get access to HIVE requests. Where do you go for this? Now I want to point this out. This is just a website. In fact, that's actually the wrong web page. Let me fix that real quick here in my primary PowerPoint presentation because I want you to see the correct web page here. It is ctcsoftware.com. No HIVE 21 needed anymore. It's just ctcsoftware.com. You can use any web browser or your smartphone, your tablet, your kid's Chromebook. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever web browser you'd like because it's just a website. And so we're going to dig in here and take a look at accessing those Hive requests. So I'm going to pull up, that's actually the one that Joe was using. I'm going to pull up a different web browser here. This is my Chrome browser, and I'm using this one because I'm already signed in as an admin. So what you would do is just navigate to ctcsoftware.com from the main site. You'd go sign in to the site, authenticate yourself, and then you can jump over here to Hive Requests. And just a quick note, as an admin, you have way more access than Joe has, right? That basic end user that I've got here, Joe Demo, they've only got access to some basic things because that's the way that I have my environment set up for an end user. Hive Requests, of course, today's focus, is one of those areas. In here, I too can go to Hive Requests. And in Hive Requests, I have my own requests in the list, which I've made none. There are no requests by me, but I can go to all requests, and I can see everything in the list. And in this case, by default, it's sorted by the newest requests on top. And I can see right here, Joe has requested a Titus VAV box. This is now a brand new request. It's marked as such in this little new list right here. So at this point, I can take an action. I can drop this down and mark this as pending because as I reviewed this little request right here and took a look at all of its information, I noticed there are, if I could type here, there is very little info to go on. Please provide a cut sheet, cut or spec sheet for the properties of this build. Okay, so I can start putting a comment in here and just post that comment. I was able to do that by looking at this particular request in all requests, and I hit the little comment button right here, and I have the ability to post a comment. So of course that's tracked in the history of this. If I have a misspelling or I want to change something about this, I can edit it, of course. We're good to go. Now, Joe can be notified about this request, for one, but also if I tell it that the status is marked as pending, as in like it's under review, but it's not actually being worked on, I can actually see that pending request here as well. I can filter these out. I see there's 8 brand new requests, there's 2 pending, there's some that are actually in progress and whatever. But in this case, I can now wait for Joe to get back to me with some additional documentation. So Joe signing back into their site, they would have been notified in their Hive environment or their email that there was an update to this. There's a new comment involved. I'm just going to refresh this real quick here. Their status now has been marked as pending. They can see that pending status. They can look at the comments and see, hey, look, there's very little to go on. And they can come back and edit this to provide me some more detail. They can add some attachments, whatever files they want to put in there. Maybe they go download a specific cut sheet from a specific manufacturer on a specific site or whatever. Maybe they've got a family. They can then attach that, update their case. I get notified. I can take my actions and then continue to do my work. On my side, ultimately, at the very end, once I'm all done, I can either take a look at that, and maybe what I would probably do is do some diligence of my own. I might jump into Hive. Now I'm still in here as Joe. And I might rerun my search of Titus here and realize there's actually quite a bit of Titus content inside of here. They just happen to have a library filter. So I might actually comment back and say, you know what, hey, look, there is VAV boxes inside of here. Let's figure out where this is. This is, if I go take a look, this is in the library Revit Content MEP Productivity Pack. And so perhaps I actually filter directly for this. Maybe I intentionally do something where I set a filter for a specific library. Maybe I set a specific category of content since this is mechanical equipment, and maybe I search for Titus, and that content will all come up. Let's actually see if I can do this real quick. Mech equipment should be fine here, and I can apply that search, and this will come back. Only Revit content, you know, in this case. Maybe I know they're working in a particular Revit version, but they're going to get some content back here directly. And now I can save this search and save it in the corporate searches, give it to that user and be like, hey, run this particular search. So maybe in my comments over here, I can actually add another comment here and say, hey, this particular piece of content does already exist, whatever, here it is. And then I can mark this particular thing as closed. Well, I'm actually over here in Joe's account. Let's get to my account. I could mark this as completed. Or potentially, if it's a piece of content that we're not going to build, maybe it's inappropriate for our company to have this in the list, or it's super custom for a specific project, maybe I reject it from the Hive side and I just deliver that piece of content directly to the user. So I might do that. There's actually been 3 rejected requests in here already. Or maybe this stagnates too long and it isn't relevant anymore because this user never got back to me. I might reject that or mark it as completed or whatever. But this system here is actually quite easy, I think, to use. You simply go to HIVE Request, you see all of the requests, and you can go in here, modify statuses, and update comments, and use this as a communications engine so that you can track the cases of what people need for content from the Hive environment. Some of these are super generic, and I probably should just close them out because they're a little squirrely here. But that's a part of that request administration there. So we talked about how to access the request using the web portal here. We had talked, I should probably talk a little bit about some of these admin controls for you as well. So with these admin controls in particular, you have, as request admin or as an org admin, settings for the organization as a whole. Now, Joe has some access inside the system to, let me pull up Joe's account here. Joe has the ability to do things like upvote content, so I can actually sort, filter, and whatever by upvoted content. Joe can comment on content, watch content. There's more information that they can see. They can also delete their own requests if they need to. There's a lot of controls that Joe specifically has in this basic end user account. I, as an admin, can actually control a little bit of that. I can disable the voting feature if I really wanted to. I can disable or enable comment visibility. So in the public space of all requests, Joe actually has the ability, as the end user, to view all requests as well. And in this all request space, Joe can actually go through and comment on other things that's not owned by them. And so if I wanted to disable that, and potentially disable the commenting system as a whole, as an admin over here, I can disable commenting, disable the visibility of it, and just disable it in general. So that button actually goes away. And then it's just a simple request system that has an issue, an item, that's it. It's not a communication stream if you wanted to communicate externally from the Hive system. And so you might disable voting, you might disable comment visibility. You can also choose how frequently people are notified about when notifications are sent out. So on new requests, admins get notified. On status updates, the end user can be notified. And on new request comments, if you comment on something, that could send a notification as well. Now, in my case, I have commenting turned off, and it's only on status updates that there's actually some kind of a notification. But if I wanted users to be notified when a comment is actually made, then that would send them an email notification as well that, hey, a new comment on a request that you have in the Hive system. So these are all options within the requests themselves. But you do have the ability, if you want to completely hide this requests button from the end user if you have your own workflow that's outside of the Hive request system where you want users to follow. So note about that. We've talked in the past about CMS settings, because in the CMS, the add request button can show up, and it will show up even if you disable this request system right here. If you disable this, then for the end users, the Hive requests button just won't show up. Joe, on their account over here, won't see Hive requests at all when they sign into the CTC portal, if they sign into the CTC portal. There'd actually be very little reason for them to come to the portal without requests, because that's why they would come here in the first place and actually sign in to this portal area. But if I didn't want them to come here and I wanted them to go to my own system, I might disable the request system, but I might keep the button in Hive to add a request, but I want to redirect them to my internal ticketing system. You can do that. And if you do that, you will have to go over to the CMS, to the settings for the CMS for the organization. We've talked about this in a previous one. You can enable content requests, which enables or disables the button within the CMS itself, and you can redirect the destination of that to wherever you'd like. If this is empty, it goes to our HIVE requests, assuming it's enabled. If this is filled out with something, maybe your own Zendesk ticketing system or whatever your internal support system is, you can redirect the users, and then pretty much everything I've talked about today as far as how the HIVE request administration works would be irrelevant for you, because you can redirect them elsewhere. We've talked about that in the HIVE CMS settings as well when we went through the organization settings in one of our previous webinars. You can review that if you want to know more about some of these settings inside of here. Okay, so we've talked just now about some of those admin controls, specifically surrounding the HIVE request settings, these controls right here. And I think I've actually jumped ahead of myself a little bit, because I've also already talked about request comments, which one final time here, you can get access to as an admin from HIVE requests in the all requests area. You simply hit the little comment notification bubble right here, and this will let you write whatever comments it is you want to write. Now, some of these comments can be rather verbose, and you'll notice that these windows here are pretty big, so you can actually see all the commenting going on there. But yeah, you can work with this system if you want to use it as a communication method for your team when they're asking for additional content or fixes to current content. All right. I have gone through all of the features that I intended to today. So once again, thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you in future CTC webinars. Have a fantastic day.